The Separation, a story by Premchand. When Bhola Mahato remarried after the death of his first wife, it marked the beginning of difficult times for his son, Raghu. At the time, Raghu was only 10 years old, carefree, and often seen playing gilli danda in the village. However, with the arrival of his stepmother, Panna, his life took a drastic turn, as he was forced to shoulder household responsibilities. Panna was a beautiful woman, and where beauty exists, pride often follows. She refrained from doing any heavy work herself. Raghu was made to perform tasks such as cleaning cow dung, feeding the oxen, and washing dirty dishes. Bhola's affection for Raghu gradually turned cold, as he found fault in everything the boy did. Panna's words became law for Bhola, who paid little attention to Raghu's complaints, to the point where Raghu stopped complaining altogether. Whom could he turn to? Not only his father but the entire village seemed to be against him. People said that Raghu was a stubborn boy who didn't respect his stepmother, who was supposedly kind and nurturing to him. They claimed that any other woman wouldn't have tolerated his behavior. It was only because Panna was so gentle that they managed to coexist. The grievances of the strong are always heard, but the pleas of the weak go unnoticed. Over time, Raghu's heart grew more distant from his stepmother, and 8 years passed like this until one day, Bhola received the inevitable summons of death. Panna was left with 4 children, 3 sons and a daughter, and the household expenses were significant with no one to earn a living. Raghu, now a young man, no longer paid any heed to his stepmother, and it was taken for granted that he would soon marry and live separately. The arrival of a wife would likely add fuel to the fire, and Panna foresaw a dark future. However, she was determined not to live under Raghu's roof as a dependent. She would not become a servant in the very house where she once ruled. She would not be beholden to a boy whom she had considered her servant. She was still attractive and not too old. She believed she could find another home, even if it meant people would laugh at her. But why should she care? It was not uncommon in her community for widows to remarry. After all, she wasn't from a high caste where a widow remarrying would be a disgrace. She could remarry openly without any pretense. Why, then, should she remain subservient to Raghu? A month had passed since Bhola's death. It was evening, and Panna was lost in her thoughts when she suddenly realized that the children were not in the house. This was the time when the oxen returned home, and she feared that one of the boys might get hurt by them. Who was there now to watch over them at the door? Raghu had never shown any affection for her children and rarely spoke to them with kindness. She stepped out of the house and saw Raghu sitting in the hut, making sugarcane juice while the children gathered around him, with the youngest girl playfully trying to climb onto his back. Panna couldn't believe her eyes. This was something new. Perhaps he was just putting on a show for others, pretending to care for his half-siblings while harboring malice in his heart. She spoke harshly, "What are you all doing there? Come inside, it's getting dark, and the oxen will be returning soon." Raghu looked at her with humble eyes and said, "I'm here, Kaki, there's nothing to fear." The eldest boy, Kedar, chimed in, "Kaki, Raghu Dada made 2 carts for us. Look, one for me and Khunu, and another for Lakshman and Junia. Dada will pull both carts." Panna, astonished, asked, "Who made these carts?" Kedar, with a touch of pride, replied, "Raghu Dada made them, who else? He borrowed tools from Bhagat's house and quickly put them together. They run really well, Kaki. Come, Khunu, sit down, and I'll pull you." Khunu climbed into the cart, and Kedar began to pull it. The cart made a creaking sound, as if it, too, was participating in the children's game. Lakshman got into the other cart and said, "Dada, pull this one." Raghu placed little Junia in the cart, too, and began to pull it. All 3 children clapped their hands with joy. Panna watched this scene with amazement, wondering if this was the same Raghu she knew. After a while, both carts returned, and the children eagerly shared their experiences of the ride, as if they had just flown in an airplane. Khunu said, "Kaki, all the trees were running." Lakshman added, "And the calves were running, too, all of them." Kedar proudly remarked, "Kaki, Raghu Dada pulls both carts at the same time." Junia, the youngest, was clapping her hands and dancing with excitement. Khunu said, "Now we'll get a cow too, Kaki. Raghu Dada has asked Girdhari to bring us one." Girdhari had promised, I'll bring one tomorrow. Kedar said, it gives 3 shares of milk, Kaki. We'll have plenty of milk to drink. At that moment, Raghu came inside. Panna, looking at him with a dismissive glance, asked, Raghu, did you ask Girdhari to bring a cow? Raghu, with an apologetic tone, replied, yes, I did, Kaki. He'll bring it tomorrow. Panna questioned, and where will the money come from? Have you thought about that? Raghu, still humble, responded, I've thought of everything, Kaki. I have this gold ring. I can get 25 rupees for it. I'll give 5 rupees as a deposit for the calf, and the cow will be ours. Panna was taken aback. Even her skeptical heart could no longer deny Raghu's genuine affection and good intentions. She said, why sell your ring? There's no hurry to get the cow. When we have the money, we'll buy one. An empty neck doesn't look good. The boys have managed without a cow for this long, they'll survive a little longer. Raghu, with a philosophical air, said, Kaki, these are the days for the children to enjoy. If they don't get to eat well now, when will they? Wearing the ring doesn't feel right to me, especially when people might think that after my father's death, all I care about is wearing jewelry. Bhola Mahato had passed away, worrying about the cow, but no money had come, and no cow had been bought. Raghu had solved that problem so easily. For the first time in her life, Panna felt a sense of trust in Raghu and said, if we must sell jewelry, then why not take my necklace instead? Raghu declined, no, Kaki. It looks so good around your neck. What does it matter if a man wears a ring or not? Panna insisted, come on, I'm getting old. What's the point of wearing a necklace now? You're still young, an empty neck doesn't suit you. Raghu smiled and said, how have you become old already? Who in the village can compare to you? Raghu's simple words made Panna blush with a hint of embarrassment. A touch of happiness colored her pale, withered face. 5 years passed. There was no one as hardworking, honest, and dependable as Raghu in the village. He never did anything without Panna's consent. He was now 23 years old, and Panna frequently urged him to bring his wife home. How long will she stay with her parents? Everyone blames me, saying I'm the one keeping her from coming here, she would say. But Raghu would always delay, saying, what's the hurry? He had heard from others about his wife's temperament and was hesitant to bring someone like her into the house, fearing it would disrupt the peace. Finally, one day, Panna insisted, so you won't bring her? I told you, there's no hurry. You may not be in a hurry, but I am. I'll send someone today. You'll regret it, Kaki, she has a difficult nature. What do I care? If I don't talk to her, how will we fight? She'll make the rotis, and I'll handle the rest of the work. I can't manage everything inside and outside the house alone. I'll bring her today. If you want to bring her, go ahead, but don't later say that I don't treat her well, or that I've become her slave. I won't say a word. Now go, get 2 saris and some sweets. 3 days later, Mulia arrived from her parents' house. The drums played at the door, and the sweet notes of the Sanai filled the air. The ritual of showing her face was performed. In this desolate land, she was a refreshing stream of pure water. She had a wheatish complexion, sharp, large eyes, a light blush on her cheeks, and a strong, captivating gaze. Raghu was instantly enchanted upon seeing her. In the morning, when she walked with the water pot, her wheatish complexion would glow like gold in the early sunlight, as if the dawn itself was smiling, bringing all its fragrance, beauty, and charm. Mulia had arrived from her parents' house with a heart full of resentment, thinking, my husband works himself to the bone, while Panna lives like a queen and her sons roam around like young princes. This won't do. I won't be anyone's servant. Children may belong to everyone, but brothers don't. They cling to Raghu now, but as soon as they grow up, they'll spread their wings and fly away. They won't even remember him. One day she said to Raghu, if you want to be a slave, go ahead, but I won't. Raghu replied, then what should I do? You tell me. The boys are too young to do much work yet. Mulia retorted, those boys belong to Bhola, not you. And I've heard everything about how Panna used to starve you. I won't live like a servant. I don't even know where the money goes. You think it's all in the house, but wait and see if you even get a single penny. Raghu replied, "How would it look if I handed the money over to you? Think about what people would say." Mulia responded, "I don't care what people say. I'm not a slave to anyone. You'll see I'll end up covered in flour from grinding wheat, while you sacrifice yourself for your brothers." "Why should I?" Raghu didn't respond. What he had feared came true sooner than expected. He knew the peace would last only a few more months, maybe a year. After that, the boat would sink. How long can the mother of a goat rejoice? He thought. One day, Panna had laid out mahua flowers to dry. The rainy season had started, and the grain stored in the barn was getting wet. She said to Mulia, "Look after it for a bit, I'm going to the pond to bathe." Mulia lazily replied, "I'm feeling sleepy, you watch it. What will happen if you don't bathe for a day?" Panna put away her sari and didn't go to bathe. Mulia's attack had missed its mark. Several days later, Panna returned from transplanting rice in the evening. It was dark, and she was hungry, expecting that her daughter-in-law had cooked something. But when she entered the kitchen, she found the hearth cold and the children writhing in hunger. Panna quietly asked Mulia, "Didn't you light the stove today?" Kedar replied, "Kaki, the stove wasn't lit even at noon. Bhabhi didn't cook anything." Panna asked, "Then what did you eat?" Kedar replied, "Nothing. There were some leftover rotis from last night, which Khunu and Lakshman ate. I had some sattu." Panna asked, "And what about your Bhabhi?" Kedar replied, "She's been sleeping, she hasn't eaten anything." Panna immediately lit the stove and began to cook. As she kneaded the dough, she cried, "What kind of fate is this? After burning in the fields all day, I now have to burn in front of the stove." Kedar was 14 years old and had begun to understand the situation. He said, "Kaki, Bhabhi doesn't want to live with you anymore." Panna asked, startled, "What? Did she say something?" Kedar replied, "She doesn't say anything, but I can tell that's what she wants. Why don't you just let her go? Let her live as she pleases. We have God." Panna bit her tongue and said, "Hush. Don't ever speak like that in front of me. Raghu isn't just your brother, he's your father. If you ever speak to Mulia like that, I'll take poison and die." The festival of Dashehra arrived. There was a fair in a nearby village, just a mile away. All the village boys went to see the fair. Panna also wanted to go with her children, but where would she get the money? The key was with Mulia. Raghu approached Mulia and said, "The boys are going to the fair. Give them 2 annas each." Mulia, frowning, replied, "There's no money in the house." Raghu asked, "But didn't we just sell the oil seeds? How did the money disappear so quickly?" Mulia coldly responded, "Yes, it's gone." Raghu asked, "Where did it go? Let me hear it. Are you saying the boys won't go to the fair on a festival day?" Mulia snapped, "Ask your Kaki to give the money. What's the use of holding it?" The key was hanging on the hook. Raghu took it down and was about to unlock the box when Mulia grabbed his hand and said, "Give me the key, or it won't be good. We need money for food, clothes, and books, and now you want to go to the fair? My earnings aren't for others to enjoy while I do all the work." Panna said to Raghu, "Bhaiya, there's probably no money. The boys won't go to the fair." Raghu, dismissively, replied, "Why won't they go to the fair? The whole village is going. Why shouldn't our boys go?" With that, Raghu freed his hand, took out the money, and gave it to the boys. But when he tried to hand the key back to Mulia, she threw it into the courtyard and covered her face with her scarf, lying down. The boys didn't go to the fair. 2 days passed. Mulia didn't eat, and Panna remained hungry as well. Raghu tried to persuade both of them, but neither would give in. Finally, in desperation, Raghu asked Mulia, "Just tell me what you want." Mulia, addressing the ground, said, "I don't want anything. Just take me back to my parents' house." Raghu sighed, "Fine, get up and eat. I'll take you there." Mulia raised her eyes to look at Raghu. Seeing her expression, he was terrified. The sweetness, the charm, the beauty all were gone. Her teeth were bared, her eyes bulging, and her nostrils flaring. She glared at him with fiery eyes and said, "So, Kaki gave you this advice? She taught you this chant?" Don't think I'm so naive. I'll grind you both into the dust. What do you think? Raghu, still trying to calm her, replied, well, you can grind us into the dust later. But first, eat something. Mulia declared, I won't take a drop of water until the household is divided. I've had enough. Raghu was stunned, unable to speak for a minute. He had never imagined such a situation, not even in his dreams. He had seen a few families in the village split up, and he knew very well that when meals are divided, so are hearts. Loved ones become strangers forever. The bond between them becomes as distant as with any other villager. Raghu had resolved to prevent this disaster from happening in his home, but his determination was no match for fate. Oh, my face will be blackened. The whole village will say that after the father's death, they couldn't even live together for 10 years. And who should I separate from? The children I've raised, the ones I've cared for like my own, the ones I've suffered for. Should I separate from them? Should I throw my beloved ones out of the house? His throat choked up. In a trembling voice, he asked, you really want me to separate from my brothers? Think about it, Kaki. Will I be able to show my face to anyone? Mulia, unmoved, replied, I can't live with them. Raghu responded, then why don't you separate yourself? Why drag me into it? Mulia retorted, do you think I get to eat sweets in this house? Don't I have a place in the world? Raghu pleaded, it's up to you. Live wherever you want, but I won't separate from my family. The day this house has two hearts, my heart will break in two. I can't bear that. If you are suffering, I'll fix it. You are already the mistress of the house. You control the food and grain. What more do you want? If you don't want to work, don't. If I had the means, I wouldn't let you lift a finger. Your delicate hands and feet weren't made for hard work. But what can I do? I have no control over anything. Still, if you don't want to work, don't. But please, don't ask me to separate from my family. I beg you. Mulia adjusted her scarf and moved closer, saying, I'm not afraid of work. I don't want to sit around and eat. But I can't stand being bullied. Your Kaki does the housework for herself and her children. She's not doing me any favors. Then why should she boss me around? Her children are dear to her, but I only have you. I can't stand seeing the whole house living in comfort, while the one who holds everything together is left to suffer. Just look at yourself how haggard you've become. In 4 years, others will have their sons ready to take over. You'll be bedridden in 10 years. Why don't you just sit down? Are you planning to run away? I'm not going to tie you up. Or is it that the mistress hasn't given her orders? Honestly, you're so cold-hearted. If I had known I'd have to deal with someone like you, I'd never have come to this house. Even if I had, I wouldn't have let myself get attached. But now my heart is set on you. Even if I go back to my parents, my heart will stay here. And you don't even care about me. Mulia's sweet words had no effect on Raghu. He remained firm, saying, Mulia, I can't do this. Just the thought of separating from my family makes me feel strange. I can't bear this pain. With that, he brought out 2 small carts from the corner, each with 4 wheels, seats, and sidebars for safety. Mulia teased him, saying, then why don't you wear bangles and stay inside? Let me wear the mustache. I thought you had some guts, but now I see you're just a lump of clay. Panna had been listening to their conversation from the hallway. She could no longer stay silent. She stepped forward and said to Raghu, when she's determined to separate, why do you want to force her to stay? You live with her, and may God be with us. When Mahato died, and we had no roof over our heads, God took care of us. Why should we be afraid now? God has blessed us with 3 grown sons. There's nothing to worry about anymore. You've done so much for my children, and I'll never forget it. If you hadn't been there for them, who knows where they would be today, wandering from door to door, begging for food. I'll sing your praises until the day I die. If my skin could be used to make your shoes, I'd gladly offer it. Even if we separate, know that I'll come running like a dog whenever you call. Don't ever think that I'll wish you harm. The day I wish you ill, I'll take poison and die. May God bless you with a long and prosperous life. I'll keep praying for you until my last breath. And if my sons are anything like their father, they'll respect and honor you until the day they die. With that, Panna left, tears streaming down her face. Raghu remained where he was, as if he had turned to stone, staring at the sky with tears in his eyes. Hearing Panna's words, Mulia realized she had won. She quickly got up, cleaned the house, lit the stove, and went to fetch water from the well. In the village, there were two groups of women, the daughters-in-law and the mothers-in-law. Daughters-in-law sought advice and sympathy from their group, while mothers-in-law did the same with theirs. Both had their separate councils. Mulia met 2 or 3 daughters-in-law at the well. One asked, "Your old lady was crying a lot today, wasn't she?" Mulia, proud of her victory, replied, "She's been the mistress of the house for so long. Who would want to give up their throne? But sister, I don't wish her any harm. But how far can one person's earnings go? I'm in my prime. These are the years to eat well, dress well, and live well. If I waste my youth serving them, what will I have left for my children?" One daughter-in-law commented, "The old lady wants you to stay a servant for life, eat the scraps, and keep quiet." Another added, "Who would die for someone else's children? Your own kids don't care, so how can you trust others? The boys will grow up and leave you behind. It's better to draw the line now, while you still can." Mulia returned home with the water, prepared the meal, and said to Raghu, "Go take a bath, the food is ready." Raghu didn't move. He just sat there, staring at the door with his head in his hands. Mulia said again, "Did you hear me? The food is ready, go take a bath." Raghu replied, "I heard you. I'm not deaf. The food is ready, go ahead and eat. I'm not hungry." Mulia didn't say anything else. She extinguished the fire, put the food on the shelf, covered her head with her scarf, and lay down. After a while, Panna came and said, "The food is ready. Go wash up and eat. The daughter-in-law must be hungry too." Raghu, annoyed, replied, "Kaki, will you let me stay in the house, or do you want me to run away? I'll eat, but not today. What difference does it make? I'll eat tomorrow. But I can't eat now. Hasn't Kedar returned from the school yet?" Panna replied, "Not yet, but he should be here soon." Panna understood that as long as she didn't cook for the boys and feed them herself, Raghu wouldn't eat. Not only that, but she would have to argue with Raghu and scold him. She would have to show that she was the one who wanted to separate, otherwise, Raghu would wither away, consumed by his thoughts. With this in mind, she lit the stove and began to cook. Just then, Kedar and Khunnu returned from school. Panna said, "Come, children, the food is ready." Kedar asked, "Should I call Bhaiya?" Panna replied, "You come and eat. Their food has been prepared separately." Khunnu said, "Shouldn't I go and ask Bhaiya?" Panna replied, "They'll eat when they feel like it. You sit down and eat. What does it matter to you? Whoever wants to eat will eat, and whoever doesn't want to eat, won't. When he and his wife are determined to live separately, who's going to stop them?" Kedar asked, "Are we really going to live in separate houses?" Panna replied, "If they want to, let them live together. If they want, they can put up a wall in the courtyard." Khunnu peeked out the door and saw Raghu sitting in the hut, sipping coconut water. Khunnu said, "Bhaiya is still sitting there with a coconut." Panna replied, "He'll eat when he feels like it." Kedar asked, "Did Bhaiya scold Bhabhi?" Mulia had been lying in her room, listening. She came out and said, "Bhaiya didn't scold her. Now you come and scold me." Kedar's face turned pale. He didn't say another word. The 3 boys ate their meal and went outside. The hot wind had started to blow. In the mango grove, the village children were collecting fallen mangoes. Kedar suggested, "Let's go pick some mangoes today too. There are plenty falling." Khunnu said, "What about Dada?" Lachman added, "I'm not going. Dada will scold us." Kedar replied, "They've already separated." Lachman asked, "So, if someone hits us, Dada won't say anything?" Kedar replied, "Why wouldn't he?" Raghu saw the 3 boys standing at the door but didn't say anything. Usually, he would scold them as soon as they stepped outside, but today, he sat still like a statue. Seeing that Raghu wasn't saying anything, the boys gained some courage and moved a little further. Raghu still didn't say anything. How could he? He was thinking, "Kaki fed the boys and didn't even ask me. Is she blind too? What if I call the boys and they don't come? I can't bring myself to scold them. They'll be out in the hot wind all day. What if they get sick? His heart ached, but he couldn't bring himself to say anything. Seeing that Raghu wasn't going to say anything, the boys walked on. Suddenly, Mulia came and said, "Are you going to get up now or not? The ones you are fasting for have happily fed the boys, eaten themselves, and are now resting." Not once did they think to say, "Come, Bhaiya, eat something." At that moment, Raghu felt an unbearable pain. Mulia's harsh words were like salt on a wound. He looked at her with sorrowful eyes and said, "What you wanted has happened. Now go beat the drum." Mulia replied, "No, I've set the plate for you." Raghu, feeling dejected, said, "Don't mock me, Mulia. I'm becoming infamous because of you. If you refuse to be a part of this household, why should anyone else care about me? Go and ask Kaki if I should go bring the boys back from the grove." Mulia showed her thumb and said, "I'm not going anywhere. Even if you need them 100 times, go and ask yourself." At that moment, Panna came out from inside. Raghu asked, "Kaki, the boys have gone to the grove. The hot wind is blowing." Panna replied, "Who's going to watch over them now? Let them go to the grove, climb trees, or drown in water. What can I do alone?" Raghu asked, "Shall I go and bring them back?" Panna replied, "If you don't want to go on your own, then why should I tell you? Couldn't you have stopped them? They must have gone right in front of you." Before Panna could finish speaking, Raghu put down the coconut and headed towards the grove. When Raghu returned with the boys from the grove, he saw Mulia still standing in the hut. He said, "Why don't you go and eat? I'm not hungry at this hour." Mulia, with a sarcastic tone, said, "Of course, why would you be hungry? Your brothers have eaten, so you must be full too." Raghu, gritting his teeth, said, "Don't provoke me, Mulia, or it won't be good. The food isn't going anywhere. If I skip one meal, I won't die. Do you think something small has happened in the house today? You didn't light the stove, but you've set my heart on fire. I was proud that no matter what happened, the disease of division wouldn't infect my house, but you've shattered my pride. It's fate." Mulia, irritated, said, "You're the only one who cares, aren't you? I don't see anyone else like you." Raghu sighed and said, "Mulia, don't rub salt in my wounds. It's because of you that my back is breaking. If I don't care about this household, who will? I'm the one who built it up, piece by piece, with my blood and sweat. The children I raised will now become my enemies. The children I scolded, I can't even look at them harshly now. If I try to do anything for their benefit, people will say I'm robbing my own brothers. Go, leave me alone. I can't eat anything right now." Mulia said, "I'll make a vow." "No, just quietly come along." Raghu replied, "Look, nothing is lost yet. Give up your stubbornness." Mulia said, "I'll take a vow. You'll eat, won't you?" Raghu, putting his hands over his ears, said, "What have you done, Mulia?" "I was just getting up. Come on, I'll eat. Who has time to bathe? But let me tell you, even if I eat 4 instead of 6 rotis, even if you dunk me in a vat of ghee, this stain on my heart won't go away." Mulia said, "All stains will go away. Everyone feels like this at first. Don't you see how peaceful it is over there? She was hoping for this separation. Now the house won't be like before, with everything disappearing. Why would she want to live with us now?" Raghu replied, "That's what pains me. I didn't expect this from Kaki." When Raghu sat down to eat, each bite felt like poison. The rotis tasted like chaff, the dal like water. He didn't even touch the milk. After a few bites, he got up, as if he were eating at a beloved's funeral. That night, he ate the same way. He tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. An unknown fear gripped his heart, as if Bhola Mahto was sitting at the door, crying. He woke up with a start several times, feeling as if Bhola was looking at him with disdain. He ate twice a day, but it was as if he were eating at an enemy's house. Bhola's grieving figure haunted his thoughts. He couldn't sleep at night. When he walked through the village, he kept his head down as if he had committed a terrible crime. 5 years passed. Raghu was now the father of 2 sons. A wall had been built in the courtyard, and the fields had been divided. The oxen and other animals had been shared between the two households. Kedar was now 16 years old. He had stopped studying and was working in the fields. Khunnu herded the cows. Only Lachman still attended school. Panna and Mulia were now enemies, glaring at each other whenever they met. Mulia's two sons often stayed with Panna, who bathed them, applied kajal, and carried them around. But Mulia never uttered a word of gratitude, nor did Panna expect any. She did everything out of pure love. Panna's two sons were now earning, and her daughter could cook. Panna managed the rest of the household chores. On the other hand, Raghu was alone, weak, and prematurely aged. He was only 30 years old, but his hair had turned grey, and his back was bent. Farming required hard work, and Raghu couldn't take care of the fields as they should be. As a result, the harvests were poor. He was also in debt, which constantly worried him. This was the time when Raghu should have been resting after years of hard work, with the burden lifted from his shoulders. But Mulia's selfishness and short-sightedness had destroyed their flourishing farm. If they had all lived together, Raghu would have been enjoying a peaceful life, sitting at the door, sipping coconut water. His brothers would have worked, while he offered advice and played the role of a wise elder. But that opportunity had slipped away. Now, the burden of worry grew heavier by the day. Finally, Raghu began to suffer from a slow fever. The combination of worry, hard work, and deprivation had taken its toll. At first, he didn't pay much attention to it, thinking it would pass on its own. But as his weakness increased, he began to seek remedies. He took whatever people recommended, but he couldn't afford to see doctors or healers. Even if he could, what good would it do? Chronic fever required rest and good food, but Raghu had neither. He couldn't take the prescribed tonics, nor could he rest and eat nutritious food. His weakness continued to grow. Panna would visit him whenever she could, offering comfort. But her sons no longer spoke to Raghu. They didn't help with his treatment, and even mocked him. They thought, he believed he could make a fortune by separating from us. Now let him see how it feels. Let him cry out for help. It's good for him to suffer a bit. Panna would say, Raghu is not to blame. Kedar would reply, come on, I know what's going on. If I were in his place, I would have taken a stick to them. There's no way I'd let my wife run the show. This was all part of his plan. Finally, one day, Raghu's flickering life extinguished. Death put an end to all his worries. In his final moments, he had called for Kedar, but Kedar was busy watering the sugarcane fields. He was afraid he would be sent for medicine, so he made up an excuse. Mulia's life plunged into darkness. The ground beneath her feet had slipped away, and the post she had leaned on had been uprooted. The villagers began to say, see how quickly God has punished her. She was so proud, walking on air, but now look at her. Ashamed, Mulia wandered the village with her two children, unable to show her face to anyone. Everyone seemed to be saying, she was so arrogant, and now she's paying the price. How would she survive now? How would she manage the farm? Raghu had been weak, but he had still worked as long as he could. He would sometimes sit down, exhausted, but he would get back up after a short rest and continue working. The farm was in ruins. Who would take care of it now? The grain was still in the field, the sugarcane was drying up. What could she do alone? How could she handle everything on her own? Irrigation wasn't a one-person job. Where would she find 3 or 4 workers? There were few laborers in the village, and there was fierce competition for them. What should she do? 13 days passed like this. The morning rituals were over. The very next morning, Mulia took her 2 children and went to thresh the grain. She laid one child down on a soft bed of grass under a tree and sat the other down nearby, then began to thresh the grain. She drove the oxen and wept. Is this why God brought me into the world? Look how quickly everything has changed. Just last year, we were threshing grain, and I brought Raghu sherbet and fried peas. Now there's no one before me or behind me. But she still didn't regret separating from the family. Suddenly, she heard the younger child crying and looked over to see the older boy trying to comfort him. Quiet, baby, quiet, he said, gently stroking his brother's face, desperate to soothe him. When the baby wouldn't stop crying, the older boy lay down beside him and cuddled him, but when that didn't work either, he began to cry himself. Just then, Panna came running and picked up the baby, cradling him in her arms. "Why didn't you bring the children to me, daughter-in-law?" "Oh dear. The poor baby was lying on the ground. What will you do when I'm gone?" "Separate from me if you must, but the children haven't separated." Mulia replied, "But you were busy too, Amma. What could I do?" Panna said, "But why were you in such a hurry to come here? The grain could have waited. You have 3 boys, what are they for?" "Kedar wanted to start threshing yesterday, but I told him, first water the sugarcane, then thresh the grain. Threshing can wait 10 days, but if the sugarcane isn't watered, it will dry up. The water started flowing yesterday, and by tomorrow the fields will be full. Then we can thresh the grain. You won't believe it, but since Bhaiya died, Kedar has been so worried. He asks 100 times a day, is Bhabhi crying a lot? Are the children hungry? If any of the children cry, he runs over and asks, Amma, what happened? Why is the child crying? Yesterday, he was crying and said, Amma, if I had known Bhaiya would leave us so soon, I would have taken better care of him. I used to wake him up, and now I'm up and working before dawn. Yesterday, Khunu said, let's water our sugarcane first, then we'll water Bhaiya's. Kedar scolded him so harshly that Khunu didn't say another word. He said, what do you mean, ours, and Bhaiya's sugarcane? If Bhaiya hadn't taken care of us, we'd either be dead or begging on the streets. Now you act like you're the big sugarcane owner. The other day I went to call him for dinner, and he was sitting in the hut, crying. I asked, why are you crying? And he said, Amma, Bhaiya died because of this separation. If only I had realized it sooner, I wouldn't have let it happen. With this, Panna looked meaningfully at Mulia and said, he won't let you stay separate, daughter-in-law. He says, Bhaiya died for us, so we'll die for his children. Tears streamed from Mulia's eyes. Today, for the first time, Panna's words were filled with genuine sorrow, comfort, and concern. Mulia's heart had never been so drawn to Panna. The people she had once feared would mock her and retaliate against her were now so compassionate and kind. For the first time, she felt ashamed of her selfishness. For the first time, her soul condemned the separation. 5 years passed since that incident. Panna was now old, and Kedar was the head of the household. Mulia was the mistress of the house. Khunu and Lachman were married, but Kedar remained single. He said, I won't get married. Several marriage proposals came and went, but he never agreed. Panna tried everything, but he wouldn't budge. He said, what happiness is there in marriage? When a wife enters the house, everything changes. Whatever is left belongs to the wife. Parents, brothers, and relatives become strangers. When even Bhaiya's heart changed, what chance do others have? I already have 2 sons, thanks to God. What more do I need? 2 sons without marriage, what could be better? Whoever you consider your own is your own, whoever you consider a stranger is a stranger. One day, Panna asked, but how will your lineage continue? Kedar replied, my lineage is already continuing. I consider both boys my own. Panna said, if you consider them your own, then you must consider Mulia your wife too. Kedar, embarrassed, replied, you are insulting me, Amma. Panna replied, how is it an insult? She's your Bhabhi. Kedar said, why would someone as beautiful as her care about someone as crude as me? Panna said, if you want, I can ask her. Kedar replied, no, Amma, don't make her cry. Panna said, if you're willing, I'll find out what she thinks. Kedar replied, I don't know. Do what you want. Panna understood what was in Kedar's heart. The boy had feelings for Mulia, but he was too shy and afraid to say anything. That same day, Panna said to Mulia, what can I do, daughter-in-law? My heart's desire remains unfulfilled. If Kedar's house was settled, I could die in peace. Mulia replied, but he doesn't want to get married, Amma. What can we do? Panna said, he says he'll marry a woman who will live peacefully in the house. Mulia asked, where will we find such a woman? Let's look. Panna said, I've already found her. Mulia, surprised, asked,
Really? Where is she from?
Panna said, I won't tell you just yet, but I know if she marries Kedar, the house will be blessed, and Kedar's life will be fulfilled. But who knows if the girl will agree? Mulia said,
Why wouldn't she agree, Amma? Where else will she find such a handsome, hard-working, and virtuous man? He must have been a saint in a previous life, otherwise, who would remain unmarried out of fear of conflict? Where does she live? I'll go and convince her.
Panna said.
If you want, you can convince her. It's all up to you.
Mulia replied.
I'll go today, Amma. I'll fall at her feet and convince her.
Panna said.
Should I tell you? That woman is you.
Mulia blushed and said.
You're insulting me, Amma.
Panna replied.
How is it an insult? He's your Devar.
Mulia said.
Why would he want an old woman like me?
Panna replied.
He's been waiting for you all this time. No one else appeals to him. He's too afraid to say anything, but I know what's in his heart.
The widow's pale face, withered by sorrow, suddenly blossomed like a lotus. In that single moment, it was as if she had regained everything she had lost over the past 10 years, with interest, her beauty, her vitality, her charm, and her grace.
This story was originally written by Premchand, a legendary author of Hindi literature almost 100 years ago. Do let us know if you like the story. If it so happens that you did not like the story, even then, please let us know your choice so that we can find something you would like to listen. If you like the story, tell your friends as well. If you want to enjoy more stories like these from so many other Indian authors, subscribing the channel would make it easy. Bye for now.